And I want to spend the first few minutes of the session, as always, really just making a break from the activities of the day, as much as we can do that. Psychophysically arriving into the practice space, so we just sort of clarify a little bit the next period of the next phase, the next hour and a half of what we're doing that as consciously, as deliberately as we can. So all being well, where you are on the floor, you're not going to be too cold. Usually the coldest part of the room, isn't it? So keep your clothes on, your layers on rather, socks on and things for a minute. Oh, we have another one joining us. Hi, Sri Dashni, welcome in. We're just getting started, okay? Supine, we're doing a practice based around twisting from different positions. We'll be working with twisting from seated to lying down to standing. So we're just spending a few minutes grounding, centering. Do whatever you need to do to arrive. So it might be taking some long, even breaths. Might be that you want to focus somewhat more on connecting to your body, area by area. Just bringing those areas of your body into attention, both the ones that we're most often conscious of anyway, and the ones that we're less conscious of. And just seeing how the body is. So just taking the temperature of your state of well-being. Moment. How the body feels, how the energy feels. And if there's a sense that we're somewhat in the head, because that's where the energy's been all day, make an effort to take your attention to your breathing and lower the attention down into the body. So come down into the area of the navel, between the navel and the pubic area. It's a really important area to focus on in any body discipline, actually. And then just letting your awareness gradually take root. So we bring some interest into the sphere of the practice. That helps. We're here to do some practice. We're doing this together, so we're all going through a similar experience for the next hour and a quarter. Grounding and opening. Refreshing our energy, the energy system of the body. Encouraging our mind to stay present continuously throughout the practice. Okay, so then bringing your feet together, I'm going to start off with some simple things that we would have done many, many times before. There'll be a few things that perhaps we haven't practiced so regularly as well this evening. So we're just going to work a little bit with these vital principles that I've talked on and off about in these sessions. First of all, grounding, grounding, which is yielding, and then reaching out. So we're not going to do so much reaching out initially, just going to stretch out the arms at the height of the shoulders, place the palms of the hands down on the floor, looking up to the sky, keep the face, especially the face, the eyes, the nose, tongue relaxed in the head. Yeah. So the senses are relatively passive. Bringing your feet together and your knees together, I'd like you to raise your feet off the floor and extend your feet to the sky. So you take the legs to the vertical position. So really letting the weight drop down through the spine and through the pelvis primarily, and then lifting up as if trying to lift the pelvis off the ground, extending through the feet to the sky. And just do that fairly firmly for about 5 breaths. Okay, you're projecting through the heels or through the balls of the feet. So we're engaging the muscles out from the pelvis, through the legs to the feet, out from the pelvis, from the hips, along the inner edge and the outer edge of the leg. Now bring the feet down onto the floor. So I'd like you just to bring your feet down onto the floor and then pick up your pelvis and just shift your pelvis slightly towards the left side so that the outside edge of the pelvis is in line with the side of the body, okay? Keeping your upper body nice and grounded, yielding through the shoulder blades and the back of the head. Let the knees roll to the right side. Initially, keep your gaze upwards towards the sky. All right, and then if you want, you can turn your head towards the left side. You don't have to. So the knees are coming down to the floor together, which means the knees might not go all the way down to the floor completely. Yeah. So just notice that this movement is initiating itself in the pelvis. Okay, so we're making an effort here to ground the upper spine. And there's somewhat active movement in the lumbar spine here, even though it's not that detectable. Actually, most of our movements from a twist start off in the pelvis, actually. Now, the upper leg, I'd like you to extend out to the side, okay? So you're going to project your left foot, left heel, right out to the right side. Just think about keeping the leg more or less level with the pelvis. Firmly grounding in the upper back and the arms and the hands. As you're breathing in and breathing out, you might try to raise the foot a bit higher, as if taking the foot towards the head. Don't let that compromise your spine, okay? So try to avoid rolling the pelvis under here. Keep a sense of the pelvis extending out and down as you raise the leg, okay? Now bring that leg back in again so that your knees are bent, folded on each other. Come back to the center. And then just slide your pelvis over to the right side, same thing. Okay. And then you're going to tip the pelvis to the other side. Again, looking up to the sky, and if you wish, turning your head to the right side. So it's quite interesting in yoga to look one way and then be working with the limbs in the opposite direction to keep the awareness in both spheres where you're looking and where you're working. So we're going to extend our upper right leg out to the left side now, projecting out. Take your felt sense into that leg, much as you can. See if you can raise the foot a bit higher, as if lifting it towards the head. At the same time, keep the pelvis from tucking under. So I want the pelvis to be projecting downwards. Really grounding through the upper back. I'm just going to sustain this for 5 breaths, which we've probably almost done. Okay, folding the leg back in. Bring your legs back to the center. And just shift your pelvis back into the center again so that you're in line, nicely in line. Pelvis, trunk, feet, arms keep on extending out. We're just going to turn the palms of the hands up now. So we rotate the hands, palms facing to the sky. Pick up your feet and bring your thighs closer towards your body. So you're sort of maximizing, if you like, the flexion of the spine in relation to the hips. Okay. Grounding through the spine. Then you're going to roll the legs once again over towards the right side, this time from a centered pelvis position. Rolling the legs over. You can let your legs come down to the ground here if you want. Don't mind the separation between the knees too much. Gazing up or gazing out to the left side. So by lifting the knees in, even though we try not to fold the pelvis under, we activate the lumbar spine more in the twist. We incorporate the lumbar. Okay, so a slight adjustment makes a difference in terms of how the pelvis relates to the lumbar. Keep your attention and your felt sense in that lumbar part of the spine for a moment, and the breathing. Okay, one smooth movement back to the center, keeping your feet lifted off the floor initially. Place your feet down for a moment, and then roll over towards the other side. Pelvis leading, keeping the knees lifted in. That's very good. So we can feel the difference between having a sort of longer, more open twist or having a more compact twist where we're bringing the legs much closer into the trunk. There's a different effect on the spinal column. Bring your legs back to the center now, please. And just going to move your feet now down a little bit further away from the pelvis. So you just lengthen out the space between the buttocks and the heels. And then we're going to cross the left leg over the top of the right leg. Okay. You don't have to tuck the foot under the back of the calf. If you can easily do that, as in Garudasana, fine. But if not, don't worry. Okay. Just keep the foot into the side of the calf. Now you're going to shift your pelvis again to the left side just a little bit. And then we're going to let the left knee lead over towards the right side. So the left knee takes the legs and the pelvis towards the right side. And now I'd encourage you to take the right hand on top of the outside of the left leg here, just to emphasize a little bit more the power of the rotation. Now keep on grounding the upper back, especially lengthening out for the left arm. I'm going to keep the breath here long and steady and smooth throughout the pose. So just see if you can highlight and notice the sensations as being different in this pose compared to the last pose. Where are you most going to feel that? Probably going to be in the hip, yeah, because of the nature of the way you've set the legs up. So not so deep in the spine, but more accessing and bringing the hip into play. Now bring your legs, if you can, back to the center. Okay, so once again, keep the heels same distance away from the pelvis. Cross your right leg over the left leg. And then let your upper knee lead out to the left side. Okay, really grounding, really while your shoulders and your back. Then left hand onto the outside of the right knee, grounding. And then we just aid ourselves in the twist if we think that's useful. Okay, if it's useful, if it's not useful, don't do it. So you feel that pulls a little bit on the iliotibial tract to some extent. Right? It pulls on the joint in the hip. Just notice how that feels. Be particularly aware of the symmetry or the asymmetry. Doing the pose, the more tightness in one side. And you can kind of relax the effort through the legs once you're there. The main thing is to keep the spine yielding, grounding, extending out through the right arm. Okay, and I'd like you to, on an in-breath, come back up to the center, one smooth movement. Unfold your legs. Take your feet a bit wider, let's say as wide as your hips, and bring your heels closer towards the buttocks as you would do for Dvipadam, for example. And then lifting the pelvis, first of all, press down through the feet and let the pelvis lead the spine as you come up into Dvipadam. And as you lower down, extend the spine downwards through the top of the spine, all the way down to the lumbar spine, sort of stretching out your spinal column. And then the pelvis is the last thing, the coccyx is the last thing to touch the floor. Yeah. And from here, bringing the arms out to the side once again, palms down. So we're going to keep the feet apart now and just simply let the knees roll towards the right side. Okay. So this is sometimes called the scissor when you're doing it more dynamically anyway. So we're going to come to the right side, let the knees drop down passively. So we're noticing here that there is some action of rotation in the lumbar, hardly anything moving into the thoracic. Sides of the body, the transverse abdominalis, oblique abdominalis are involved in being stretched gently. You can feel that. Bring your legs back to the center and then to the other side. And then back to the center and to the other side once again. The head rolling in the opposite direction if you want to do that. So this is a more spread out twist, less compact, a lot less intense for a lying twist, very simple reclining twist. Once again to the other side. And then back to the center. Okay, from there I would like you to bring your feet together and your legs together. And then just make that small adjustment with your pelvis again. If you can slide your pelvis over towards the left side, let's say. Okay, keep grounding in the back and the arms. You're going to lift up the legs to the vertical. Okay, and we're going to see how this feels for the back. So if we don't feel okay doing this because it's too strong on the midsection or the lumbar, then you can bring your legs down to the floor and adjust yourself via sliding the feet out to the side of the floor, okay? So we're just going to try now to see if we can take the legs over towards the right side, keeping them extended. Is where you're going to need wall space. So good luck doing this in your camper van, Saskia. So you're going to need space around you to keep the legs extended out. So the way you control the movement is through strongly engaging the abdominal muscles and the lumbar, yeah? So once we've got the legs down on the floor, we're going to try and bring the feet up high as we can towards the right hand. The right hand might even catch the toes. Okay. And you're going to work to see if you can ground the upper back whilst you let the legs drop down further the other way. Grounding the upper back. So there's some action in the pose in terms of maintaining the sense of yielding. Extending through the legs. See how it feels in your lumbar. If it's too intense, maybe bring the legs lower down. Don't try and bring the feet too high up. Okay, so this accesses the lumbar as a twist. It's much more demanding also for the sacroiliac joints. So you're bringing into play much more the pelvic structures here. Okay, let your legs fold. So we're going to come round with the feet on the floor back to the center. I'm not going to try and raise the legs back up again straight. Make the adjustment with your pelvis to the right side. Bring your legs to the vertical. If that works, if that way of coming into it doesn't work, then, as I say, take the alternative route, which is easier, bringing the feet to the floor, sticking the legs out to the side. Otherwise, we're going to bring the legs down again slowly, engaging the muscles we need to engage. We even find ourselves momentarily holding the breath, right, to come down into it this way, because it's the diaphragm has to stabilize. However, once you come down, make sure you're not locking the breath. Keep breathing through the pose. Gazing the other way if you can. The legs are active. We're extending through the length, sides of the leg. Feet are active with Padalanda. And then letting the legs fold under us, bending the knees. We're going to come back to the center again. Okay. One last time, if you take the feet wide again, perhaps even a little bit wider than your pelvis, but inside your yoga mat, you can just bring your hands onto your chest or to your abdomen here, lower chest, abdomen, okay? And then let the knees roll very smoothly to the right side and then up to the center and to the left side. And do this 5 times each way. And then we're going to roll all the way to the right side and we're going to come around onto all fours. And I should have asked you to bring a block or at least have a blanket or something with you underneath the knee. So I'm hoping you've got some kind of prop. Not for this, but for the next thing. Okay, so 4 times we're going to lift the spine into a curvature. Exhale, extending the spine, lifting the tailbone, looking forwards. And then we're going to stabilize our pelvis, and we're going to twist from the shoulders. Okay, so the action is moving up the body from the pelvis to the shoulders, lifting the right arm. Is that the right arm? That's the left arm. Doesn't matter which arm. Out to the side. Okay, opening the chest, expanding through the chest, looking out, keeping the head extending out of the neck, keeping the spine long. Exhale, release down, and swiftly shift into the opposite side, lifting the arm in the height of the shoulder, following the hand with the gaze. Okay, so your gaze follows the hand around and up as you rotate, but you're definitely activating your movement from the shoulders, and you want to feel that. But primarily it's the shoulder girdle doing the work of rotating. So you've got the appendicular moving around the axis. Be very aware of the spine and where you feel the primary movements in the spine as you do this. So which part of the spine is coming into play? Which part is stabilizing? I'm just going to keep turning to the left and the right. We'll do this another 5 times on each side. Yeah. Be aware of the legs, grounding the shins and the feet. So you soon realize, don't you, how heavy your arms are, and the work of pulling your arms up against gravity and rotating your trunk against gravity becomes quite demanding. After a while, you really feel that through the shoulders, main shoulder muscles. Okay. Pause for a moment with the hands slightly forwards of the shoulders, tucking your toes under. We're going to lift the pelvis, smooth movement from the ground up to downward facing dog. Releasing the heels towards the ground, lifting the pelvis through the tailbone, through the sit bones, lengthening the waist. Looking forwards to the front of your mat, I'd like you to lift up your left foot and step your left foot forwards. Nice and long. So this is where you're going to need a support for your knee, by the way. Well, you might not, huh? You might not, it depends. I would recommend it, but it's not essential. And from here, we're going to lift up the right arm, extending through the side of the body. As we lift up the arm, we lower the pelvis down. So we find our maximum position there where we can extend the hip back. And then we're going to rotate the trunk again and hook the elbow over towards the knee, okay? So you want to keep that space in terms of lifting the chest here, away from the thigh. Join the palms of the hands together. All right, and then you're going to encourage the thumbs to come towards the heart center, not wrenching your arms in. Give your spine time to get used to the position, and then time to get used to twisting in the position. So most of this movement should come from the spine again. Thumbs towards the sternum. Be aware of needing to keep your spine long, even though you're rotating here. Crown of the head extending away, gazing out to the side. And breathing through the pose. Looking to the ground, release the arms down in front of you, step your front foot back. Okay, putting your weight down through the hands and through the feet, lift the pelvis again, projecting through the sitting bones, lengthening the waist away from the sides of the body. Planting the hands down really firmly,
So you engage the underside and the side of the shoulders to some extent. You're lifting. You're also pressing down, so you're yielding and extending. Okay, turning your gaze forwards. I'd like you to step your other foot forwards. So just turn around on my mat so that I'm not talking to the wall. Okay. As you breathe in, you're going to extend the left arm up and lower the pelvis down. Simultaneous movements in two directions. In your next exhalation, rotating, hooking over, join the palms together. So you can feel here that you've got the lumbar very stable. Yeah. Very stable. Not especially involved. Much more the thoracic area. So just pay attention to where you notice the emphasis of the movement happening in each of the postures. It's quite distinct. See if you can keep broad across the shoulders. Same time, think about extending through the crown of the head. Okay, so I'm not sinking back into the pose, not pulling the head down into the shoulders. We're lengthening out and broadening at the same time. And then we're rotating. Okay, just maintain that for a few more breaths. Few more breaths. Okay, looking to the floor, take your hands down. And once again, we're going to come back into downward facing dog. Lifting really firmly through the pelvis. Grounding the hands, grounding really firmly through the hands and the feet. So when we get the downward dog working well, we can feel the dynamic aspect of the pose really clearly. You know, it's a sense of extending all the limbs, but it becomes effortless. Okay. We're going to step the left foot forwards. Again. Right knee down to the floor. So here's where you might need a support under the knee. You might think you don't now, but when you move into the next phase, you'll probably see that you do. So we're going to try and lower our pelvis down as much as we can. At the same time, we're going to lift the back foot towards the hand. So we've got the right foot coming up towards the left hand, right foot into the left hand. And I'm going to place my right hand on the knee. So we've done this before, not a new setup. Bit of a challenge on the knee, a little bit of a challenge on the balance. From there, on the next in-breath, you're going to lengthen the spine, and then on the exhale, you're going to rotate to the left side. So I'd like to encourage that in those two phases here. Lengthening and then rotating. And you should be able to find a fairly stable position in the pose, as long as you've not got too wide a stance. So take your gaze and rest your gaze on something external. Keep your awareness in the contact with the ground. And bring the breath into the posture very fully. Again, paying attention to the experience of the spinal column, so what's going on in this pose in the spine. How is this different? Okay, looking forwards, you're going to release the knee down, foot down to the floor. Place your hands down onto the floor.
and step your front foot back, okay? From there, downward facing dog. Okay, and we're going to look forwards and step our opposite foot forwards, and we're going to repeat the whole sequence. Just practicing this time by ourselves, okay? So you're going to catch the left foot in the right hand this time. And try not to pull the foot across the midline. So imagine the midline is down the nose through the sternum, down through the pubic bone, that's your midline. And you want your foot to try and stay in line, more or less with the back hip. When you're ready, inhale, lengthen, exhale, rotate. Find a place to place your gaze. Breathing through the pose. So yeah, because it's the patellar tendon, it's quite intense on the knee. All right, so I'd like you to release down carefully. Take it easy coming out. Return to downward facing dog again. From downward facing dog, we're going to step or walk forwards, either two big steps or small steps. Exhale, folding into the legs really fully, real full exhalation. Inhalation, pick up the exhale. Come to standing, raise the arms above, looking up to the hands. Bringing the hands to Namaste at the heart center. Okay. Let your palms drop down by the sides of the hips. On the next in-breath, float the palms of the hands above you, looking up again to the hands. Nice full lengthening through the whole body. Keep the legs active as you fold forwards from the hips. Bringing the hands down onto the floor. We're going to step the right foot back. Keep the left foot forwards. So our setup is in the high lunge position, okay? Some people like to use a block under their hand when they place the hand beneath the shoulder. As you know, this whole thing is a proportional issue, so you may or may not need to use one. Otherwise, you can just lower your pelvis as much as you can so that you can keep the arm extended comfortably. That's not too demanding. Okay. From here, we're going to turn and rotate towards the left side, left leg, opening the heart center, keeping very broad between the fronts of the shoulders, and again, extending through from the crown of the head. Keep the attention in the back leg, projecting back through the heel. As you come into the pose, it's up to you whether you decide to keep the hand on the sacrum or if you want to extend into the full expression of the pose. It's really up to you. Maintain the breath through the posture. It's one of those poses where the breath can be compromised. Another 4 breaths. And release your back knee down to the floor. Okay, we'll come out this way. Somewhat easier. Place the hands down if you can. Step your front foot back, and we're going to go through the vinyasa again. So from downward facing dog, stepping, walking forwards. Folding into the legs, full exhale. Inhale to standing. Bringing the hands, palms down by the sides of the hips, floating the hands up again on the next in-breath. Palms looking up, looking in.
Exhale, palms looking down.
So we're stepping the left foot back. Okay, placing down the left hand and just going through the sequence again. Carefully, mindfully, being very aware of how you're positioning the body, being aware of your stance. The back leg is active. Don't lose touch with the back leg because it's really, in a sense, the main support for the whole pose. Rotating. As you're going to rotate, be careful not to throw the pelvis out to the side to compensate. So think about your pelvis staying very much in line and the right knee keeping close into the body. So the whole pose gathers in towards the midline of the body. Okay. Hand on the sacrum or hand extending up, it's up to you. See if we can maintain that for up to 8 breaths. If you're going to do less, that's fine. Okay, we're going to bring the back knee down again. Placing our hands down, bring the front foot back. We're going to go through the vinyasa once again. Lifting the pelvis, stepping forwards, walking forwards. Exhaling as we lift the pelvis. Inhale. Palms of the hands floating upwards, looking up. Palms of the hands down by the hips. Okay, we float them up once again. And we float forwards with the trunk. And once again, we're going to step back the right foot. So we make the high lunge position again. So I need to remove my socks because I'm sliding all over the place here. So we've got the right foot back. Okay, we're going to come up high. We're going to extend up the right arm. As we extend up the right arm, we're going to lower the pelvis down. But only to the extent that we can maintain the back leg straight. Okay. So when it gets too intense on the back groin, that means you need to come higher up or close the stance a little bit between your feet. From there, you're going to rotate nice and smoothly, just as before, hooking the elbow or resting the elbow onto the knee. Okay, join the palms together. Send your awareness into the back leg and project strongly back through the leg, through the heel, okay? And at the same time, you're going to lengthen the crown of the head away from the heart center. Right? So it's really important to work with these dynamics, these opposing movements. And then we're going to rotate the trunk. If this gets too intense, too demanding, you can always lower the back knee down, okay? Feel free to just modify the pose as you need to. So I'm just setting a structure here, but if you need to adjust yourself, just adjust yourself accordingly, okay? A few more breaths. All right. We're going to lower the back knee down, place the hands down on the floor. One last time, we'll go through our vinyasa sequence. Stand in. Floating the hands up again on the in-breath. One smooth movement, exhaling, folding forwards. And we're stepping the opposite foot back. So this time like I said, right foot forwards. Okay, raising the arm. So you really emphasize lengthening, opening the chest. And then take the energy and awareness into the back of the leg as you come forwards and round. As you rotate, you're already really focused into the back leg, grounding the ball of the foot. And see if we can maintain this for up to 10 breaths. So we're playing around here with classical poses, we're modifying them. We're doing a more classical pose, we'll have the back foot grounded on the floor, 45 degrees. Very demanding pose to do the full expression of that in that way. Okay, back knee down. I'd like you to come into child pose. One version or another for 10 breaths. Okay, extending your hands forwards in front of your shoulders on the floor. You will come to the downward facing dog pose from there. And then we're going to lift up and step our right foot forwards, but we're going to turn to the long edge of the mat with the hands on the floor. So we're taking the basic setup for Prasarita Padottanasana. Okay, wide foot forward bend. You're placing your right hand down right beneath your chest on the floor. So if you imagine the center of your chest, place the heel of the hand down beneath that. And then you're going to extend out your left arm and rotate the trunk. And to some extent, the hip comes with you this time. Out to the left side. And you're just going to rotate and alternate to left and right side. Okay. So be aware of the primary movement here. What's happening here is that the pelvis is primarily involving itself in the twist. And then we get involved with the spine. Okay. And then it's the lumbar to some extent, and then the thoracic. And then the head. So just keep this very smooth. Don't overpower the movements. Think about becoming lighter. Okay, lighter. Less effort, more involvement of the breath. The inhale. Try to bring a smoothness to the movement, softness to the breath and the gaze. All right, and then just placing the hands beneath the shoulders. Those that want to, from here, can lower the head down. Turning from the pelvis. If you don't want to, just remain here with your body parallel to the floor for a moment. Otherwise, walking the hands back, lowering the head down. So you get some of the benefits of the inversion, as we're not doing a huge number of inversions at the moment. Just letting your head, the weight of the head draw down to the floor, lengthening the neck a little bit. Traction of the spinal column. And then walking the hands forwards, lengthening the spine out once more. And then we're going to come around to the front, the short edge of the mat, back into downward facing dog one more time. And then I'd like you to come down and sit on your feet. So you're kneeling down. Is that right? Is that what we want to do? Yeah, so actually we're going to sit more to one side, sorry. So we're not taking a position of Virasana. It's more like a, I don't know what to call it, actually there's no equivalent. So you're sitting to one side, but you've got your feet behind and both knees bent, okay? So from there, we're going to move into a twist. It's a slightly funny position to come into a twist from because it's a bit asymmetrical. There's a whole variety of poses based upon this position. So we're leaning out, we just acknowledge that there is something of a lateral bend in the spine, that's okay. And we're going to rotate from here towards the right side. So picking up the heart center and rotating. You're not trying to force yourself in any way, not torquing the spine into a position here, just a gentle twist. And then back to the center, and then we're going to roll ourselves to the other side. So we sit to the left side of our feet with the feet tucked back. Have you got that? Yeah, and then so you're acknowledging here there's a sway in the spine. Okay, we haven't got the spine axially straight here. And then we're turning towards, gently turning towards the left. So you can draw quite strongly on the transverse oblique abdominalis. You're stretching that area. It's more the front of the body here, sides and front of the body. Okay, and then now what we're going to do is we might need to use a block for this, some of us. So you want your left foot just to the side of the left hip so that you can sit down on the floor, and you're going to bring your right foot inside left thigh. Okay, so you've got like a half Virasana on one side, by definition, half. And then you've got the right foot, sorry, in this case, pressed inside the left thigh with the knee also bent. Okay. And then we're going to turn ourselves to the knee, the right knee that's extending out to the side, not the knee that's going forwards, but the knee that's out to the side. So this time we've got our pelvis a bit more squarely placed on the floor, hopefully, although not entirely. So just lifting gently through the spine, you're going to rotate to the right side. I use the left hand on the right knee just to aid a little bit more of the twist. And see if you can let that pelvic pelvic side that's lifted drop down a bit more, if that's possible. So what's the experience of that in the body? Knowing some asymmetrical experience through the legs, as well as through the spine. So just become aware now, we're going to focus much more on sensations without trying to overly define the alignment in the pose to ourselves. We're not talking to ourselves about the pose here. We're just going to try and become more aware of the crude sensations of the posture itself. Through the breath, through the body's movements. Okay, lucky to change to the other side. As you change, you're still aware of sensations in the body. Yeah. So you have your right knee in line with your right hip as you do this, and then in this case, the left foot comes in inside the thigh. Yeah. So you won't have both hips squarely down on the floor, I imagine. Okay, inhale, exhale, turn to the side. So the left knee, hands, fingertips down on the floor, or on the knee. And again, I just encourage you to take your awareness into the crude sense of the pose through the sensations. Okay, release out, and I'd like you to come back into the same setup again on the other side. Okay. So we have the left foot back and the right foot inside the left thigh to start with. I just want to pull your pelvis back a little bit so that your pelvis is more or less level from an upright point of view. So I'm just going to give an option to try this. You might not want to try this as a full expression of the pose, and you might also benefit from sitting on a block to bring the pelvis a bit higher. So we might want to take the foot and place it on the thigh. Okay. So it might not work for everybody. Please be very careful of your knee. You're doing this. So when I come into this pose, I usually need to adjust myself by bringing myself more into the center again. Because what happens is I roll out too far to the right side. So I just roll back in to the center again. Okay. So this may or may not work for you any further than this. That might be enough. That might even be too much. Okay. If you're okay with that, you might want to try binding. So by binding, I mean we're taking hold of whatever we can catch hold of. So it won't necessarily be the foot. It might be the trousers. With binding, you've got to be a bit careful because it's very easy to kind of get into making it happen in a forceful way. So if the bind doesn't come easy enough, it's better to avoid it. Okay. So if you're going to do the bind, you're going to bring your right hand around the back and catch hold of the right foot if you can. So this will be the toes, yeah. That happens easy enough. You're going to bring your left hand onto the knee, and then we bring the rotation back in here. All right. So the left hip is lifted higher. There's more of an effort needed to ground the hip. And I just hold this for 4, 5, 3, 6, 8 breaths, no more than 8 breaths. And release. Okay, as you release, you're going to take the foot off carefully like that. And change the legs to the other side. Leg position. So all this can be made a little bit easier on a block for some people. You're going to raise the foot up and bring the heel as close in as you can to the groin. So that way we close the knee. So any binds like this, including half Padmasana or anything, are much better off with the knee closed. So you bring the heel in as close as you can to the body so the knee is closed, not open. Because when the knee's open and you try and rotate it, that's when you get potential problems with the knee. Yeah. So it's quite important to close it, including using some activity of Padabandha in the feet. Also protects the knee. Okay. So there's no need to push the knee down to the floor, right? Doesn't easily do that, then don't force it down. And this might just be enough. So if you're going to bind, you reach around with the left hand, take the top of the toes. So this forces the front of the body forwards quite strongly. So the kidneys need to draw, the belly needs to draw back in a bit more. Lengthening the spine, rotating. So 3, 6, 8 breaths. And we release. Yeah. Challenging. Okay, we'd like you to lie down now. Coming to the last part of your practice. So coming to semi-supine position, placing the arms down by the side of the body, we're going to press up, lift the pelvis up as high as we can, all the way towards the tops of the shoulders. Making the adjustment with the shoulders if it seems useful. Tucking the shoulder blades in. So you draw the weight more towards the crest of the shoulders. Keep the neck long, throat soft. Gazing up. Now, if you want, you can prop your pelvis into your hands to support the upper part of your hips, behind your hips with the hands. If that doesn't work for you, then you just carry on doing the more basic bridge pose. If you've got support for the pelvis and you feel okay through the elbows, forearms, neck, everything's okay, pick up one of the legs, doesn't matter which, raise it to the vertical, and ground the other foot down really firmly into the floor. So you press it down to give the base for the pose. Yeah. Release that leg down and do the same thing with the other leg. So lifting up and pressing down, grounding through the shoulders, through the foot. Gazing up to the sky, keep the face soft, keep the throat soft, tongue. And then we're going to let the leg come down, we're going to release. Bringing the knees in towards the body, taking the hands around us and giving ourselves a hug, bringing the head up. And then either just doing some apanasana to finish, or doing some very, very easy reclining twist, one of your choice, whatever you want, whatever we started with. I'm going to let you play with that for a few minutes. Okay, and then we will do some meditation very briefly. We'll do some meditation. More like I'll start you off and then you can carry on meditating if you want to type meditation. As I have a class at past. So be aware of the body in this new position. In this space of practice, there's not much to do. So we'll just begin by meeting ourselves anew. So this is a different context from yoga. Just noticing how we are. So letting the mind rest within the mind. We're no longer concerned to try and activate the body in one way or another. So the body here really just serves as a focal point for our attention in its stillness rather than its activity. So we can let go of our the sort of desires for something other than this experience. the more we let go, the more we're likely just to enjoy the process of meditation. So let the exhalations ground you a little bit more with each out breath. We'll see if we can let go of whatever needs to be let go of in order to be able to engage with the practice. So we use the breath as our focus. That seems useful. And we'll just encourage the experience of shamatha to build up. So calming and centering. First of all, just finding a degree of peace in the body, letting go of extraneous activity in the body. And we see if we can gradually find a sense of peace in the mind where we let go of the chain of thought association that keeps us always looking for something, somewhere. It's keeping us in a state of continual sort of activity and agitation mentally.